Welcome back to the final segment on today's program here on the Taiwan Outlook. I'm your host, Rui Guo, where we'll continue our conversation with Dr. Serge Dreyer from Tunghai University's Department of Foreign Languages and Literature. Serge, I understand that you have extended your love and passion for Taiwan into the collection of Taiwanese relics and also folk arts. How and when did you start it, collection of the Taiwanese artifacts and also folk arts?
Well, in fact, my first artifacts, I bought it with my wife in 1982.
82, okay.
That was a furniture.
All right.
But I couldn't really start collecting because I was moving from one place to another. So
right.
in 1986, when I arrived in Taichung,
right.
I started to collect ceramics because I'm first fond of ceramics.
Yes.
And the Taichung area is very good for that because there are a lot of artifacts. There is a famous Nantou pottery, the Shalu, and Miaoli is not very far. No. And at that time, people were just looking at these things like refuses, garbage. So it was quite easy for me to collect, and it was very, very cheap.
Yes. And what have you collected so far? What were some of the more memorable pieces or the pieces that you liked the most?
Why? In fact, probably because I've been collecting since the age of 7 or 8.
Okay.
Started with stamps from my father, then coins, and I was also living in a place where pottery making has quite a fame in France, and my mother always trained me to look at simple things,
of course,
but nice things, because my mother is coming from the countryside.
All right.
So when I arrived in Taiwan, I was just stuck, but something at the beginning I didn't understand, but I was stuck by this contrast between a very countryside way of life,
yes.
especially in 1976. It was still very much alive.
Yes.
I was also struck by the fact that at that time, the Chinese culture, the Chinese elite culture was put forward, but a big part of the Taiwanese culture was just
shelved aside.
Yes. I was shocked by that, especially because for me it was like the culture, my social class culture, because I'm coming from a poor background.
No.
And I just noticed that in daily things, in daily use, the way people use daily things, I found a lot of beautiful objects. I found very simple, but at the same time beautiful. And I was also very fascinated by the fact that although these things are very simple, people try to put into it something different, something just to express something at that time which was not considered as culture, but for me it was Taiwanese culture. It was not a subculture. It was a fully developed culture.
Yes. Okay. And Serge, I'm going to ask you to give some of your secrets away. I think a lot of viewers would like to know, where did you go find these treasures? And what do you plan to do with them? How many pieces have you collected so far?
That's a big drama of collectors. I'm presently writing a book about that, about a bunch of foreign collectors who are, like me, collecting Taiwanese artifacts.
Okay. Where do you go? Where do you go to find those treasures?
At the beginning, there were very few antique dealers.
Yes.
So I will go to them. But most of the things I will go in the countryside. Right. I will because I'm fascinated by Sanheyuan, the Taiwanese farm.
Okay.
And I will just look at them because I like old buildings, and people will be surprised to see a foreigner roaming around. What do you want? And when I started to explain to people, I like the way your farm is, I like the potteries you use, and so on. And very often people say, "Oh, okay." Take that away because we don't want that anymore.
Okay.
And that's how I started most of my collection.
Okay.
And also sometimes on the side of the road on garbage, I will find furnitures, plates, and so on. So at the beginning, all my colleagues were making fun of me, say, there's only a foreigner to collect garbages.
Okay.
But 10 years later, they came to me, where can I find these garbages? Because the value was rising.
Yeah.
And the problem you mentioned, where my collection will go, well, big part of my collection is already in France, because I cannot store everything in Taiwan.
Okay.
The other part is still in my house, because I use it. I love to look at my objects.
Okay.
So part of my collection is still in Taiwan. But that's a big dilemma for all the collectors. What are you going to do with that?
When you said that you send most of your stuff back home to France, do you intend in the future, if one day that you go back to your hometown in France, that open up maybe a exhibition center or a museum, a small-scale private museum of exhibiting Taiwanese folk arts and relics? Is that a possibility?
That's the dream. I just mentioned this bunch of foreign collectors. That's the dream we all have, to promote Taiwan abroad, because we all feel that Taiwan really deserves that.
Okay.
And very few things are known about Taiwan culture. All my friends in France, and especially Tai Chi students, they ask me to bring back things for them.
All right.
So I'm doing that every year, bringing back all
a lot of
folk
pieces.
art.
Okay.
And I've been approached to have an exhibit, but it failed because of an administrative reason.
Okay.
I would love to open a museum, or at least to put my collection in a museum.
Okay.
The problem is, it's a problem of image. Whenever you're talking in France and in Europe at large about Taiwanese artifacts, most of the people think made in Taiwan, and made in Taiwan is low-class plastic things and so on, things from the 70s or the
that image
80s.
is still there.
So if not, they say, it's just Chinese things. And when you talk about Chinese things, just people want to be, Song porcelain or Tang ceramic and so on. And they have a hard time to imagine that there is something very specific to Taiwan, which has its own beauty. And unfortunately, up to now, all the government of Taiwan didn't work hard enough to promote this aspect. Like I said, many things are very valuable in Taiwan. We didn't mention tea, for example, which is also a passion.
Of course.
For me, we have here among the best tea in the world, but very few people know it abroad.
Okay, all right.
Because it's always assimilated to Chinese.
Yeah, of course. And Serge, you've been in Taiwan, like I said, over 33, 34 years. And if you were to introduce Taiwan today to a friend from France or other countries around the world about Taiwanese people, about Taiwanese culture, about Taiwanese foods, how would you do it?
I'm doing it every year.
Okay.
I'm bringing, a lot of foreigners come to either to learn Tai Chi with me or to pay visit to me and so on.
All right.
And I remember the first time my PhD advisor came here. Is of Italian descent.
Oh, okay.
And he just looked around after one day and said, well, there are only two kinds of people in the world who understand what is life, Taiwanese and Italian. I got mad at him, but I couldn't get too mad at him about French, because you're French also. And it meant that he felt so much enthusiasm for life here. And that's something which really you can ask all the long-term residents here. It's something extraordinary. I remember when I was in the 70s, the American army was still here. And when they got back to the States, everybody thought, Taiwan is gonna crumble. No, at the opposite. Just move away.
Thrived instead.
And that's something I often say, to my friend, because I still like very much Chinese culture. Say, if you go to China, you have incredible landscape. In Taiwan, you don't have this landscape, but the real incredible landscape are the people.
Exactly.
And also different material aspect of Taiwan. For example, like I mentioned, tea. A lot of people, whenever I get back to France or in Europe, I make them taste Taiwan tea, and they're just amazed.
They just loved it.
And they just ask me to bring. I say, okay, but I'm not a businessman. And unfortunately, in Taiwan, there's no classification of tea for foreigners like we have wine for foreigners. So again, the promotion of something incredible is missing.
It's not there.
It's not here. So I introduce that, and I also introduce them, of course, my first passion, religious life. I remember that my student, my first group of students of TAIWAN, when we went to mainland China, they were very impressed. But when they came in Taiwan, suddenly some of them told me something is different here, apart from the respect of cities and so on. I say, just look around. You see thousands of temples.
Yes.
Religious life is very exciting. It's every people, all kind of people. There's no repression. There's no restriction about it. Young people, older people are very much involved into it.
Yes.
And that makes Taiwan very, very unique.
Yes.
When religion in mainland China, even especially popular cults, it's just for festival or folk festival, but there's no real life. So this is very much attracted, and also classical stuff like Yeshi, night market, and so on. I mean, life here is really, really exciting.
Yeah. For the remainder of this program, Serge, I'm going to ask you a question that I think you should be able, in a very good position to answer that. You used to be a football player, and the year 2010 is the World Cup year. Okay? What is your assessment? What is your prediction? How do you think the Team France is going to do this year?
I prefer not to have prediction, but my...
Which one is your favorite? Who are you rooting for?
Favorite, I would say Spain.
Okay.
I would be happy if Spain could win because they have a beautiful team. But I would be even more happy if an African team could win.
Okay.
Because they have
taking place
incredible
in South
talent.
Africa,
Yeah.
yes.
I don't think it will happen this time yet, but I hope we are on the verge to see an African team at least reaching the final, and in the future, I'm sure one of their teams will be world champion, and that will be great.
Okay. Well, Dr. Dreyer, it's certainly been a pleasure talking with you today.
Me too.
And as a program host, I've learned a lot from your conversation about your discovery, about Taiwanese culture, about the passion that you have for Taiji Quan and things. And wish you all the luck in your private and professional endeavors in the future. I hope all the best to you and your family. Okay. I want to thank you for watching our program today. I'll see you next time on Macroview Television. Thank you very much.